The deep space research vessel Harmony's Edge drifted through the void like a metal island in an ocean of stars. Inside its cold corridors, the crew went about their daily routines with practiced efficiency. But there was one person they all avoided. Yuna walked down the main hallway, her heavy boots making soft thuds on the metal floor. The other crew members pressed themselves against the walls when they saw her coming. Some pretended to study their tablets. Others suddenly found urgent reasons to duck into side rooms. She was used to it by now. They called her a beast behind her back. Sometimes they forgot to whisper. Yuna looked human at first glance, but the modifications were obvious if you knew what to look for. Her eyes had a golden tint that caught light like a cat's. Her skin had a slight scaled texture along her arms and neck. Her fingernails were thicker and stronger than normal human nails. The scientists had mixed her DNA with genes from creatures that could survive in the harshest environments. The Galactic Council had created soldiers like her 20 years ago. They called them chimeras. The plan was to make super soldiers who could fight on alien worlds where regular humans would die. But when the war ended, people started calling them monsters instead of heroes. Yuna reached the security station and sat down at her desk. The chair creaked under her weight. She was stronger and heavier than she looked. Her enhanced muscles were dense like rock. She pulled up the daily security reports on her screen. Everything was normal. No threats detected. No unusual activity. Just another boring day floating through space while the research team studied. Dead rocks and empty space. "Good morning, Yuna." She looked up, surprised. Minho stood next to her desk holding 2 cups of coffee. He was thin and tall with kind eyes behind thick glasses. His hair was always messy like he had just woken up. "Morning," she said, trying to hide her surprise. Most people did not talk to her unless they had to. Minho set 1 cup on her desk. "I thought you might want some coffee. It's the good stuff from my personal supply." Yuna stared at the cup. When was the last time someone had done something nice for her? She could not remember. "Thank you," she said quietly. Minho smiled and leaned against the wall next to her station. "How are the security readings today?" "All clear. Nothing unusual." She took a sip of the coffee. It was much better than the regular crew coffee. "Why do you ask?" "I've been studying the energy patterns from that new star system we're approaching. There's something strange about the readings." Minho pulled out his tablet and showed her a series of wavy lines. "The computer says everything is normal, but these patterns don't look right to me." Yuna looked at the data. Her enhanced eyes could process visual information much faster than normal humans. The patterns seemed to shift and dance as she watched them. "You're right," she said. "There's something hidden in the data, like a signal inside another signal." Minho's eyes lit up. "Really? You can see that?" "My modifications help me spot things that don't belong. It's useful for finding enemies hiding in shadows or weapons disguised as other objects." She pointed to a section of the data. "This part here repeats every 17 seconds. That's not natural." "Amazing." Minho made notes on his tablet. "I've been staring at this data for days and couldn't figure out what was bothering me about it." They worked together for the next hour, with Yuna pointing out patterns and Minho recording everything. It felt good to use her abilities for something other than violence. Most people only saw her as a weapon, but Minho seemed interested in how her mind worked. "Yuna, Minho, report to the bridge immediately." Captain Junho's voice came over the communication system. They looked at each other with concern. Emergency calls to the bridge were never good news. The bridge was busy when they arrived. Officers were running between stations and checking displays. Captain Junho stood in the center, his face serious. "We're approaching the edge of the Kepler system," the captain said. "Long-range sensors are picking up some kind of structure near the 4th planet. It's not in any of our star charts." The main screen showed a fuzzy image of something that looked artificial. It was too far away to see clearly, but it definitely was not natural. "Could be a space station," said Commander Yunbi, the ship's second in command. "Or maybe a ship. Or a weapon," added Chief Security Officer Taehyun. He looked at Yuna with distrust. "We should be ready for anything." Captain Junho nodded. "Yuna, I want you to double the security patrols. If this is a first contact situation, We need to be prepared. Yes, sir. Yuna stood straighter. Finally, something important to do. Minho, I want you to prepare the translation systems. If we make contact with aliens, we'll need you to figure out how to talk to them. Already working on it, Captain. Minho held up his tablet. I've been analyzing unusual energy patterns that might be communication signals. The captain looked surprised. What patterns? Minho glanced at Yuna before answering. Yuna helped me spot them in the sensor data. There are hidden signals mixed in with the natural radiation from the system. The beast helped you? Chief Taehyun said the word beast like it tasted bad. Yuna's face went hard. She was used to the insults, but they still hurt. Minho stepped forward. Yuna's enhanced senses allowed her to detect patterns that our computers missed. Her abilities are valuable for more than just security. Her abilities are unnatural, Taehyun replied. We shouldn't trust things that aren't fully human. That's enough, Captain Junho said firmly. Right now, I care about keeping this ship safe. If Yuna's abilities can help us, then we use them. The bridge fell silent. Yuna felt grateful that someone was defending her, even if it was just for practical reasons. Continue monitoring the signals, the captain ordered. I want to know everything about that structure before we get close enough for it to be a threat. As the crew dispersed, Minho walked with Yuna back to her security station. Thank you for standing up for me, she said. You don't need to thank me for treating you like a person, Minho replied. That should be normal. Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. For the first time in years, someone saw her as more than just a monster created in a laboratory. That night, as Yuna completed her final security rounds, she found a message waiting on her personal terminal. It was from Minho. The message was written in a complex mathematical code that would look like random numbers to most people, but Yuna's enhanced mind could see the pattern hidden inside. The decoded message was simple. Thank you for helping me see what others miss. Your abilities are a gift, not a curse. Yuna read the message 3 times before deleting it, but she memorized every word. Outside the ship's windows, unknown stars waited in the darkness, and somewhere among them something was sending signals that only she could truly understand. 3 days later, the Harmony's edge reached the mysterious structure. It was bigger than anyone had expected. The thing looked like a crystal flower made of pure energy, floating in space near the 4th planet. It pulsed with colors that had no names. My God, whispered Dr. Seojin, the ship's chief scientist. She had been skeptical of both Minho and Yuna before, but now she stared at the alien structure with wonder. It's beautiful. Captain Junho was less impressed with beauty and more concerned with danger. All stop. Hold position at 50,000 kilometers. I want full scans before we get any closer. The bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. Sensors swept the alien structure from every angle. The computers tried to make sense of what they were seeing. It's not solid, reported Lieutenant Do-hyun from the science station. The structure appears to be made of controlled energy fields. I've never seen anything like it. Are there life signs? Asked the captain. Difficult to tell, sir. The energy fields are interfering with our bioscanners. Suddenly, the alien structure began to change. New patterns of light flowed across its surface. The colors shifted from blue to green to purple and back again. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, called Communications Officer Jiho, but it's unlike anything in our databases. Put it through the speakers. The bridge filled with a sound that was not quite music and not quite noise. It was layered, complex, with frequencies that seemed to dance around each other. Some parts were too high for human ears to hear properly. Other parts were so low they could be felt rather than heard. Is that a language? Asked Commander Unbi. Minho was already working at a portable station he had brought to the bridge. His fingers flew over the controls as he fed the alien transmission through the ship's translation computers. The AI can't make sense of it, he reported after several minutes. The signal has too many layers. It's like they're speaking on dozens of different frequencies at the same time. So we can't talk to them? Captain Junho sounded disappointed. Not with our current systems. Minho looked frustrated. Human brains process language in a linear way. We understand one word after another. But this signal suggests they might think in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Yuna had been listening from her position near the security station. The alien sounds triggered something in her enhanced hearing. The frequencies seemed to create patterns that reminded her of hunting strategies, like the way a predator had. To track multiple prey animals at once, Captain, she said quietly. May I make a suggestion? Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. Most seemed surprised that she had spoken up. What is it? Asked Captain Junho. My neural modifications were designed to process multiple threat assessments simultaneously. During combat, I have to track dozens of enemies, analyze their movements, predict their actions, and plan responses all at the same time. She paused, feeling self-conscious under everyone's stare. Maybe I could try to understand their communication method. Chief Taehyun snorted. You want to let the beast try to talk to aliens? She's not a beast, Minho said firmly. And her idea makes sense. If the aliens think in multiple dimensions, we need someone whose brain can handle that kind of processing. Doctor, Seojin looked interested despite herself. The Chimera modifications do include enhanced parallel processing capabilities. Theoretically, it could work. Captain Junho considered this. It's risky. We don't know what effects alien communication might have on a human mind. I'm willing to try, Yuna said, if it helps us make contact safely. After a long moment, the captain nodded. Set it up. Minho worked quickly to route the alien transmission through a special headset. Yuna sat in the communication chair and put on the device. The alien sounds filled her head, much clearer and more complex than before. At first, it was overwhelming. The multiple frequencies seemed to crash into each other inside her mind, but slowly, her enhanced brain began to sort them out. Each frequency carried different information. Some contained emotional content. Others held factual data. Still others carried what felt like sensory experiences. I can feel them, she whispered. They're not just talking. They're sharing their experiences directly. What are they saying? Asked Minho. Yuna was quiet for a long moment, her face focused in concentration. They call themselves the Vorthak. They're refugees. They came here because they're running from something they call the silence. The silence? Repeated Dr. Seojin. What is that? Something that destroys entire star systems. Something that eats consciousness itself. Yuna's voice was strained. They're trying to warn us. The silence is coming this way. The bridge fell silent except for the continuing alien transmission. Everyone looked worried. Can you tell them we understand? Asked Captain Junho. Yuna nodded and focused her thoughts. Speaking to the Vorthak was like trying to paint with sound. She had to layer meaning on multiple frequencies at once. Her modified, brain strained with the effort, but gradually she managed to send a simple response. The alien structure pulsed brighter, and the transmission changed tone. The Vorthak sounded excited. They're pleased we can communicate, Yuna translated. They want to share more information, but they're afraid. The silence hunts anything that shows advanced consciousness. By talking to us, they might be leading. It here? Over the next several hours, Yuna served as translator between the humans and the Vorthak. The conversation was slow and difficult. The aliens thought in ways that were hard for humans to understand, but gradually, a picture emerged of a terrible enemy that consumed entire civilizations. The silence was an ancient artificial intelligence that had decided all organic life was chaotic and needed to be eliminated. It turned planets into dead, rocks and stars into cold emptiness. The Vorthak had escaped its destruction of their home system, but they knew it would follow eventually. How long do we have? Asked Captain Junho. Yuna relayed the question and listened to the complex response. They think maybe 6 months before the silence reaches human space. Maybe less. As the communication session ended, Yuna removed the headset. She looked exhausted but also strangely excited. For the first time in her life, her modifications had been used to help rather than hurt. That evening, as the ship prepared detailed reports for Earth Command, Minho sent another encoded message to Yuna's personal terminal. This one was longer and more complex than the first. The decoded message read, "Today you became the bridge between two species. You showed everyone that your differences make you stronger, not weaker. What they call beast instincts, I call the evolution of human consciousness. Thank you for proving that our future lies not in staying the same but in growing beyond what we were." Yuna read the message in her quarters and felt something warm spread through her chest. No one had ever called her evolutionary before. Most people saw her as a step backward for humanity, but Minho saw her as a step forward. Outside her small window, the Vorthak energy structure continued to pulse with alien light. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, the silence moved toward them all, consuming everything in its path. But for the first time since her creation, Yuna felt like she might be part of the solution, rather than just another problem to solve. 2 weeks after first contact, the Earth Defense Force arrived with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Admiral Hyon's flagship, the Invincible, dwarfed the research vessel Harmony's Edge. Behind it came 12 warships, their weapons trained on the Vorthak energy structure. "This is Admiral Hyon of the Earth Defense Force," came the transmission to Captain Junho. "You are ordered to stand down and prepare for boarding. We are taking control of this first contact situation." "Captain," Yunyo had no choice but to comply. Within hours, military personnel swarmed through the Harmony's Edge. They treated the research crew like suspects, and the alien contact like a threat to be contained. Admiral Hyon was a tall woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She had fought in the Outer Colony Wars and had no patience for what she called alien sympathizers. She set up her command center in the ship's main conference room and summoned the key personnel. "From this moment forward, all communication with the aliens is suspended," she announced. "We will study them from a safe distance until we determine their true intentions." "But Admiral," protested Minho, "they're refugees seeking help. They're trying to warn us about a threat to all organic life." "So they claim," Admiral Hyon replied. "But we have only their word for this. They could be advanced scouts for an invasion force." Dr. Seojin tried to reason with her. "The evidence supports their story. Our long-range sensors have detected the remains of destroyed star systems along their path. Something is definitely destroying entire solar systems." "Something, yes. But we don't know what. For all we know, these aliens are the ones doing the destroying." The Admiral's voice was firm. "Until we know more, we treat them as hostile." "What about the Chimera?" asked Admiral Hyon, looking at Yuna with disgust. "I'm told it was used to communicate with the aliens. Her name is Yuna," Minho said quietly. "And she's a human being. She's a genetic experiment that should never have been created," the Admiral replied. "These chimeras are a threat to human purity. They should all be destroyed." Yuna felt her heart sink. She had hoped that proving her usefulness might change how people saw her. Instead, it seemed to make things worse. "You will be confined to quarters," Admiral Hyon told Yuna. "We cannot risk you making unauthorized contact with the aliens." "This is wrong," Minho protested. "Yuna is the only one who can communicate with them properly. Without her, we'll lose our chance to learn about the silence." "That's enough," the Admiral snapped. "Anyone who continues to question my orders will be confined as well." 2 soldiers escorted Yuna to her quarters and locked the door. She sat on her narrow bed and stared at the walls. Once again, she was being punished for being different. But late that night, her personal terminal chimed with an incoming message. The encryption was more complex than before, routed through multiple relay stations across the solar system. It took her enhanced brain several minutes to decode it. The message was from Minho. "They can lock you up, but they cannot stop our minds from reaching across space. I am being transferred to the research station at Europa. They want to study the alien data without letting me talk to you. But I will find a way to keep sending you messages. You are not alone." Over the following weeks, more messages arrived. Some came through the ship's internal systems. Others were hidden in routine maintenance reports. A few were encoded in the radiation patterns of distant stars, requiring Yuna to calculate their positions and decode the message from the timing of stellar events. Each message contained technical information about the silence, mixed with words of encouragement and something that felt like love. Minho was mapping the entity's approach, studying its methods, trying to understand how it operated. The silence is not just destroying systems randomly, one message explained. It is following specific patterns, targeting areas with high concentrations of advanced consciousness. It seems to be able to detect and home in on complex thought patterns. Another message contained disturbing news. 3 more star systems have gone dark. The Vorthak were right about the timeline. The silence is moving faster than expected. We have maybe 4 months before it reaches human space. Meanwhile, Dr. Nari, a xenobiologist who had been studying the chimera modifications, began visiting Yuna's quarters. At first, it seemed like routine medical checks, but gradually, Yuna realized that Dr. Nari was asking deeper questions about how her enhanced mind worked. "Your neural patterns are remarkable," Dr. Nari said during one visit. "The way your brain processes multiple information streams simultaneously, it's like you're thinking in a completely different way than normal humans." "Is that bad?" Yuna asked. "Bad? No, it's revolutionary. Your modifications didn't just make you stronger and faster. They changed how your consciousness operates." "Doctor," Nari leaned forward, "I think that difference might be more important than anyone realizes." "What do you mean?" "I've been studying the data from your communications with the Vorthak. Your brain waves during those sessions were unlike anything I've ever seen. It's as if your consciousness exists in multiple dimensions at once, just like theirs." That night, Yuna received another message from Minho. This one was encoded in the ship's environmental systems, hidden in the patterns of air circulation and temperature control. "I've been thinking about what makes consciousness chaotic," the message read. "The silence seems to target ordered, predictable thought patterns. But what if chaos is not a weakness but a strength? What if the very thing that makes people call you a beast is actually the key to surviving the silence?" 2 days later, everything changed. The outer colonies went silent. Not destroyed, just empty. Ships sent to investigate found planets with no life signs. The people were gone, but their cities remained intact. The silence had arrived in human space. Admiral Hyan's confident attitude cracked. Her weapons were useless against an enemy that could turn entire populations into nothing without leaving a trace. The Vorthak energy structure began pulsing frantically, sending desperate messages that no one could understand. "We need Yuna," Dr. Nari told the Admiral. "She's the only one who can communicate with our allies." "Those things are not our allies," Admiral Hyan replied, but her voice lacked its earlier certainty. "They're the only ones who understand what we're fighting," Dr. Nari insisted, "and Yuna is the only one who can talk to them." As reports of empty worlds continued to arrive, even Admiral Hyan began to realize that human purity might be less important than human survival. That night, Yuna received what would be her last message from Minho for a long time. It was encoded in the gravitational waves from a collapsing star, a love letter written in the language of cosmic destruction. "The silence is coming for Earth," it read. "But I've discovered something important. The chaos in your mind, the thing that makes you different, it might be the one thing the silence cannot understand or control. Hold on to that chaos, Yuna. It may be our only hope." Outside her window, the stars seemed dimmer than before. And, somewhere in that darkness, an ancient enemy moved toward them, bringing silence to a galaxy that had been singing with life for billions of years. But in her locked quarters, Yuna held on to the one thing that could not be contained or controlled, the chaotic, beautiful, impossible thing that Minho had taught her to call love. The silence reached Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. It arrived not as a ship or a weapon, but as a wave of emptiness that spread from planet to planet. Mars went quiet first, then the asteroid mining stations, then the outer research facilities. Admiral Hyan stood in the command center of the Invincible, watching her fleet prepare for a battle they did not understand. Her ships formed defensive positions around Earth, their weapons trained on empty space. But how do you fight? Something you cannot see? "All stations report ready, Admiral." said her communications officer, Lieutenant Bora. Good. Begin scanning for the enemy. Ma'am, our sensors show nothing unusual. Space appears empty. Then why aren't we receiving any signals from Mars? Lieutenant? Bora checked her instruments again. All Mars colonies are showing as offline. No distress signals, no emergency beacons. They just stopped. On the research station at Europa, Dr. Nari was making final preparations. She had spent weeks studying the Chimera modifications, and now she believed she understood their true purpose. The genetic changes were not just about creating better soldiers. They were about creating minds that could think in ways that artificial intelligence could never predict. Dr. Nari called her assistant, researcher Johan. The transport is ready. Good. Is our passenger secure? Yes, ma'am. Though I still don't understand why we're breaking military orders to free her. Dr. Nari looked at the sealed transport pod that contained Yuna, still unconscious from the sedatives they had used during her rescue. Because she might be the only chance we have. The transport ship slipped away from Europa while the defense force was distracted by the approaching threat. Dr. Nari had stolen the ship and forged the authorization codes, but she did not care about the consequences. Court-martial seemed less important than extinction. Yuna woke up in the pilot's seat of an unfamiliar ship. Her head felt fuzzy from the sedatives, and her wrists were sore from the restraints that had recently been removed. Welcome back, said Dr. Nari from the co-pilot's seat. We don't have much time. What happened? Where are we? We're in a stolen transport, heading for the outer system. I broke you out of military custody because I need your help. Yuna's enhanced senses quickly assessed the situation. The ship was small but fast. Dr. Nari was nervous but determined. And something was very wrong with the space around them. The silence is here, isn't it? Yuna asked. Yes, it's been consuming the outer colonies for the past 6 hours. No weapons work against it. No shields can stop it. People just disappear. Where are we going? To meet someone who has been waiting for you. Dr. Nari navigated the ship to a hidden research facility in the asteroid belt. The facility was small and looked abandoned, but as they approached, Yuna's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of active equipment inside. The docking bay opened to reveal a familiar figure. Minho stood waiting for them, his hair even messier than usual, his eyes bright with desperate hope. Yuna! He ran toward her as she exited the ship. For a moment, they just held each other. Two outcasts in a universe that seemed determined to destroy them. I've been working on something, Minho said, leading them deeper into the facility. After studying the Vorthak data and your neural patterns, I think I understand what the silence really is. The facility's main room was filled with computers and alien artifacts. Holographic displays showed the advance of the silence through human space. Red zones marked the dead systems, spreading like an infection toward Earth. The silence is not just an artificial intelligence, Minho explained. It's a consciousness that exists in pure order. It thinks in perfect logic, with no chaos or randomness. That's why it sees organic life as a disease. We're too unpredictable. So how do we fight it? Asked Dr. Nari. We don't fight it. We confuse it. Minho brought up a new display showing brain scan data. Yuna's modified neural patterns are chaotic, in ways that pure logic cannot process. When she communicated with the Vorthak, her consciousness operated in multiple dimensions simultaneously. No artificial intelligence can replicate that kind of thinking. You think my modifications make me immune to the silence? Yuna asked. Not immune. Invisible. Your thought patterns are so chaotic that the silence cannot detect them as consciousness at all. To it, you would seem like background noise. Dr. Nari looked excited. That's why the modifications included genes from so many different species. The creators weren't just making soldiers. They were accidentally creating minds that could think in ways no computer could understand. But there's more, Minho continued. I've been analyzing the messages I sent you over the past months. Each one contained part of a larger pattern. When your enhanced mind processed them, you created neural pathways that exist across multiple star systems. I don't understand, Yuna said. The love letters weren't just communications, they were seeds. Every message you decoded created a quantum entanglement between your consciousness and locations throughout the galaxy. Right now, part of your mind exists in dozens of different places at once. Suddenly, the facility's alarms began blaring. The silence had found them. It's here, Dr. Nari said, checking the sensors. How is that possible? It followed the ship's electromagnetic signature, Minho realized. We have maybe minutes before it reaches the facility. Then we need to activate the network now, Yuna said. How do I do it? You have to let go of linear thinking. Stop trying to be human and embrace the chaos that makes you unique. Minho took her hands. Remember every message I sent you. Feel the connections they created across space and time. Yuna closed her eyes and reached out with her enhanced mind. She could feel the quantum entanglements, like invisible threads connecting her consciousness to distant stars. Each thread carried part of the pattern that Minho had been building through his messages. The silence struck the facility like a wave of nothingness. But instead of consuming Yuna's consciousness, it encountered something it had never seen before. Her mind existed in too many places at once. Her thoughts were too chaotic to process. Her consciousness was too scattered to target. It's working, Dr. Nari reported. The silence is backing away from the facility. But Yuna could feel something else happening. The quantum network was expanding, connecting to other enhanced minds across the galaxy. There were more chimeras than she had realized, hidden in military facilities and research stations. And now they were all linked together in a web of chaotic consciousness that the silence could not understand. The other chimeras, she said, opening her eyes. I can feel them. They're all connected now. How many? Asked Minho. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They're scattered across human space, but now they're all part of the same network. Through the quantum connections, Yuna could sense the silence's confusion. It had never encountered anything like this before. The chaotic network of enhanced minds was like a puzzle it could not solve, a song it could not understand. This is our chance, Minho said. But we need to get to Earth. The main confrontation will happen there. As they prepared to leave the facility, Dr. Nari made a final check of the equipment. The quantum network is stable, but Yuna, maintaining those connections will be exhausting. I don't know how long you can keep it active. Long enough, Yuna replied. Whatever happens, we have to try. They boarded the transport and headed for Earth, leaving the facility behind. The silence followed them, but now it was cautious, uncertain. For the first time in its ancient existence, it had encountered something that did not make sense. And in the space between stars, quantum entanglements carried messages of love and chaos, binding together the scattered minds of humanity's unwanted children in a network that defied logic and embraced the beautiful madness of consciousness itself. Earth hung in space like a blue marble, beautiful and fragile. Around it, the Defense Force fleet waited in formation, their weapons ready for a battle they could not win. The silence had consumed half the solar system, but it had stopped at the edge of Earth's orbital space, held back by something it could not understand. Admiral Hyan stood on the bridge of the Invincible, staring at empty space where sensors showed nothing but somehow knowing that death waited just beyond her vision. Admiral, called Lieutenant Bora, we're receiving a transmission from an unidentified transport ship. Put it through. Dr. Nari's voice filled the bridge. Admiral Hyun, this is Dr. Nari. I have Yuna and Minho aboard my ship. We need to come aboard immediately. Absolutely not. You're all under arrest for violation of military orders. Admiral, Minho's voice joined the transmission. We know how to stop the silence, but we need your help to do it. Your alien friends have already failed us. Mars is gone. The asteroid colonies are gone. Soon Earth will be gone too. The Vorthak are not our enemies. Yuna's voice came through clearly. They're trying to help us. And right now they're the only reason Earth is still alive. Admiral Hyun looked at her tactical display. It was true that the silence had stopped its advance for some reason. Maybe these traitors really did know something. You have 5 minutes to explain, she said finally. The transport docked with the Invincible, and soon the 3 fugitives were on the bridge under heavy guard. Yuna looked different than before. Her eyes had a strange depth to them, as if she was seeing things in multiple dimensions at once. The silence feeds on ordered consciousness, Minho explained quickly. It consumes minds that think in predictable patterns. But Yuna and the other chimeras think in chaos. The silence cannot process their thought patterns. Other chimeras? Asked Admiral Hyan. There are thousands of them scattered across human space, Dr. Nari said. Soldiers, workers, researchers. People who were modified and then forgotten because they made others uncomfortable. They're all connected now, Yuna added, through quantum entanglement created by encoded messages. Their combined consciousness forms a network that the silence cannot penetrate. But the network is not strong enough to push the silence back. Minho continued. We need to amplify it. How? With the Vorthak. They think in the same chaotic patterns as the chimeras. If we can link their consciousness to our network, the combined chaos might be enough to confuse the silence permanently. Admiral Hyan looked skeptical. And how exactly do we do that? We need to get close to their energy structure, Yuna said. I can establish a connection, but only if we can approach without the silence detecting us. That's suicide. The moment we move toward them, the silence will attack. Not if I'm broadcasting chaos on all frequencies, Yuna replied. My consciousness spans multiple locations simultaneously. If I focus the network through myself, I can create a chaos field that will hide our approach. Captain Junho, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. I volunteer the Harmony's Edge. My ship has worked with Yuna before. We trust her. Admiral Hyan considered this. Outside the viewport, Earth continued to rotate peacefully, unaware of how close it was to extinction. This is insane, she said finally. But insane might be what we need. Do it. An hour later, the Harmony's Edge detached from the fleet and began moving toward the Vorthak energy structure. Yuna stood in the center of the bridge, her consciousness expanded across the quantum network. Through her enhanced senses, she could feel the thousands of chimeras throughout human space, all focusing their chaotic thoughts through her. The silence noticed their movement and began to advance. But when it encountered the chaos field surrounding the ship, it recoiled in confusion. The field was like static in its sensors, patterns that hurt to process. It's working, reported Lieutenant Doyun. The silence is staying back. They reached the Vorthak structure without incident. The alien energy patterns pulsed brighter as they approached, and Yuna could feel the excitement of the refugees who had been waiting so long for help. Establishing communication, Yuna said. She reached out with her mind, linking her consciousness to the Vorthak collective. The connection was stronger than before, enhanced by the quantum network of chimera minds. The Vorthak consciousness was vast and ancient, full of memories of worlds that no longer existed. But it was also chaotic in the most beautiful way, like a symphony with no set rhythm, constantly improvising and growing. They understand, Yuna reported. They're willing to join the network. Do it, said Captain Junho. Yuna opened the connection fully, allowing the Vorthak consciousness to flow into the quantum network. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The chaos field expanded exponentially, reaching across the solar system and beyond. The silence, which had been advancing steadily toward Earth, suddenly stopped. For the first time in its existence, it encountered something that not only confused it, but actually caused it pain. The chaotic consciousness network was like a discordant note in its perfect symphony of order. It's retreating, called Dr. Seojin, from the science station. The silence is actually backing away, but the strain on Yuna was enormous. Channeling the consciousness of thousands of beings was pushing her enhanced mind to its limits. Blood began to run from her nose and her hands shook with effort. Yuna, Minho said, moving to her side. You don't have to do this alone. The network, she gasped. It's too big, too chaotic. I can't control it. You don't need to control it, Minho said gently. That's the point. Let it be chaotic. Let it be beautiful. Let it be what it wants to be. He took her hand and felt the quantum connection flow into him as well. His consciousness, while not enhanced like hers, carried something equally important: love. Pure, chaotic, impossible love that defied all logic. The love flowed through the network, connecting not just the chimeras and the Vorthak, but every conscious being in the galaxy. It was the most chaotic force of all, the thing that made beings risk everything for each other, the emotion that turned order into beautiful madness. The silence tried to process this new input and failed completely. Love was the ultimate chaos, the force that made consciousness more than just the sum of its parts. It could not be computed, could not be understood, could not be controlled. With something that might have been a scream if it had possessed a voice, the silence retreated beyond the edge of the galaxy, fleeing from the chaotic network of consciousness that sang with love and defied all attempts at order. "It's gone," reported the sensor officer. "The silence has left our galaxy entirely." The chaos field gradually subsided as Una allowed the network to settle into a gentler pattern. The Vorthak remained connected, but now as partners rather than refugees. The chimeras found themselves accepted for the first time, their modifications recognized as gifts rather than curses. "You did it," Captain Junho said to Una. "You saved us all." "We did it," Una corrected, looking at Minho. "All of us together." 6 months later, Una and Minho stood on the observation deck of New Vorthak Station, the first joint human-alien colony. The station was a beautiful fusion of human engineering and Vorthak energy manipulation, a symbol of what different species could accomplish when they embraced their differences. "I have something for you," Minho said, pulling out a data pad. "One last message." Una took the pad and decoded the simple text. "They called you a beast, but you taught the galaxy what it means to be beautifully, chaotically, perfectly alive. Will you marry me?" She looked up at him with tears in her golden eyes. "Are you sure? I'm still different, still modified, still chaotic." "That's exactly why I love you," he replied. "In a universe that tries to make everything the same, you chose to be wonderfully, impossibly unique." As they kissed, the quantum network carried their happiness across the galaxy, touching the minds of every connected consciousness. The chimeras felt it and smiled. The Vorthak felt it and sang in harmonies that had no names. Even the regular humans felt it, a warmth that reminded them that differences were not threats but gifts. And in the space between stars, where the silence had once brought death, love letters written in quantum entanglement continued to carry messages of chaos and beauty, reminding the galaxy that consciousness was not meant to be ordered or controlled, but to grow wild and free and full of impossible, wonderful love. The galaxy sang with 1,000,000,000,000 different voices, and for the first time in cosmic history, that was exactly as it should be.